Episode 5 Love, Lies, and the Cocaine Carousel. Part 1 Scene 1 The Morning After the River. I don't remember falling asleep that night, just rum, exhaustion, and the sound of rain chewing on the tin roof at Playa Hermosa. I do remember the way I woke up. Jonathan's name on the screen. Way too early. I answer. What? Jonathan's voice, hoarse, flat, like a man who's been up all night on bad decisions and cheap Florida Cognac. Dave, Jose lost the Hilux in the estuary. Thunder rumbles through my brain. I just laid there staring at the ceiling, hungover, and trying to compute that one sentence. The Hilux. The Minister of Tourism's Toyota Hilux. The truck that was our lifeline for GreenSurf, Nicaragua, stuffed with surfboards and clients the night before. Gone. What in the... Oh man. The previous night, we'd taken a group of about 6 or 7 tourists out in Leon. Some of them friends from Jacksonville. Colonial city, bars, music, that hazy mix of surf trip adrenaline and bad judgment. By the time we piled into the truck to drive back toward the coast, everyone was buzzed and stupidly confident. I'd been dropped off first at Playa Hermosa with a few clients. Half drunk, sunburned, I stumbled into the beach house, passed out like a rock. Meanwhile, Jose, our driver, the country's head of tourism's super professional, pushed on toward El Tránsito in the rain with the rest of the group. Then they reached the estuary. At night, in the rain, with the river in full surge, and from what I was later told, a chorus of slightly drunk tourists chanting, "Go, go, you can make it, let's go." It was the worst possible recipe. Imagine it. The deafening sound of raining buckets of Amazon drops and truck engine revs, sudden splash, metal crunch, people shouting, water rushing. The river took them. The Hilux went sideways, lost traction, and got swallowed downstream in the dark, surging estuary. By some miracle, everyone got out. My friends Matt and Charlie, both with lifeguard experience, pulled Jose out and probably saved his life. Jose was last to get out thanks to Matt and Charlie as he was pinned between a stuck door due to water pressure, panic, and the seatbelt. Charlie tells me it's, to this day, one of the most retold stories of his entire life. They dragged boards, backpacks, soggy humans, waterlogged cameras, and whatever they could grab out of the water in the dark chaos. And the only way back to Playa Hermosa? Walk. In the rain. In the pitch black. Through rural Nicaragua, with no lights, no map, no truck, and one hell of a story. Somewhere along that walk of shame, the universe decided to add a giggle. Out of the night, a skunk, a real honest-to-God skunk, waddled across their path. Charlie, hero of the night, estuary savior, got blasted. Full spray. No good deed goes unpunished in the rural, flooding Nicaragua coastline anyway. So, imagine the scene. Soaked in river water, shaking from adrenaline. Truck gone, night never ending. And Charlie, now radiating pure skunk. They walked like that, in the dark, back toward Playa Hermosa, a surreal, stinking parade of survivors. I slept through all of it. So when Jonathan called me that morning, I heard all of this in a compressed, half-panicked retelling. The truck was gone. My friends were okay. Everyone was rattled. And somewhere in the middle of the hangover fog, one thought punched through. We are so screwed. Because that Hilux wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol of trust. The minister's trust. Frank's trust. Our entire operation's backbone. When Frank found out, the emails started. Oh man, the emails. Paragraphs in all caps, accusations, lectures, description of total damage, forwarded messages from the minister. We never fully recovered from that hit, financially or emotionally. The truck eventually got recovered downstream in the estuary, not quite in the ocean, but close enough to smell it. Total loss. That night became legend among our guests. To us, it became something else. The first big crack in the shell. The first domino in a new line. Scene 2. Business as usual on the surface. After the truck incident, there wasn't time to sit around and cry. We had guests in beds, trips booked, still a lot to do. A minister of tourism to appease. And Frank, very far away in Florida, absolutely livid and breathing fire over Gmail. On the surface, it was business as usual. We scrambled to rent replacement vehicles. Behind the scenes, I was calculating what had just been wiped off the board. Value of the truck. Future bookings and reputation in jeopardy. Relationship capital with the minister and his family. Frank's patience. GreenSurf Nicaragua was still alive. But the financial lung capacity? Shot. Still, Playa Hermosa and El Tránsito were magic. Surfers kept coming. Word of mouth spread. My little ad on Surf Station's website in St. Augustine did its job. Started getting visitors literally from all over the globe due to Surfline and Magic Seaweed and other partner surf forecast or travel websites. The early TripAdvisor reviews were glowing. Best waves of my life. Local knowledge was incredible. Felt like we had a private coastline. Jonathan became more and more the visible face of the tours. The surf guide, the guy in the photos with guests. His ego loved it. And me? I was the owner-operator behind the scenes. And increasingly, the ghost. The guy fixing things, trying to pay people, answering emails. And when the weekends came, the guy disappears into the shadows with a pocket full of cash and a number in Leon. I was more the photographer, the documenter. 99% of the thousands of photos were taken by yours truly. I loved following and photographing our clients. Let's talk about cocaine again. Not in the abstract, not in the just say no poster way. Let's talk about how it actually works in someone like me. Orphan. Early childhood trauma, abuse so bad my bones were broken before I could talk, attachment issues, loneliness, guilt about my son, shame over divorce, the perfect cocktail of unfinished wounds. The first time I tried cocaine, back in Jacksonville around 2006 or 2007, it felt like flipping a switch I didn't know existed. Suddenly, I wasn't quiet or withdrawn. I was extroverted. I wanted to dance, talk to everyone, flirt with strangers, crack jokes. I felt like I'd discovered the confident version of myself I always hoped was hiding inside. Clubs, bars, parties. I was the dancing, sweaty, overconfident surfer dude version of myself. But then came shame. I started noticing how people looked at me, especially one of my roommate's girlfriends. She knew when I was high. She could smell it in my behavior, see it in my eyes, hear it in the way I talked too fast, too loud, too much. She was pissed, disappointed, and somewhere deep in my gut, a new belief lodged itself. If I'm high, I'm disgusting. So the cocaine didn't go away. It just went underground. I stopped enjoying it in public. I couldn't look people in the eyes. My skin crawled when I tried to talk to anyone. The solution my brain came up with? Do it alone. That's the thing with cocaine. For 1 hour, you feel like a god. Then, for the next hour, you feel like you're decomposing from the inside out. The come down is brutal, especially when you have a trauma profile like mine. Your brain jumps from, I'm amazing, to, I'm the worst thing that's ever happened to my life in a matter of minutes. You can't sleep. You can't think straight. Your heart is hammering. You're stuck in this loop where every regret, every failure, every shameful memory plays on repeat, while your body begs you, one more bump, just one more, then you'll feel okay. That's the lie. 1 hour of fake confidence, 1 hour of hell, over and over and over. And the more pain you carry in your past, the more tempting that hour of fake confidence becomes. So, in Nicaragua, in 2010, with GreenSurf gaining traction, you might think I'd be living fully in the present, but addiction doesn't care. I had by then cultivated multiple connections in Leon and Managua, quiet little lines to very pure, very strong cocaine. Most weekends, especially between groups of clients, the pattern was the same. Jonathan ran around Leon partying with guests, drinking, flirting. I slipped away to some cheap hotel room alone, closed the door, pulled the curtains, did coke, stared at a screen, hated myself. I didn't want anyone to see me when I was high. I couldn't look anyone in the eyes. I just wanted to disappear. Cocaine feels like the devil's perfect engineering project. It will fix your loneliness while slowly isolating you from every human connection you have. Scene 4, Parallel Universe. The Girl Who Was Surviving. While I was in Nicaragua, pseudo-surf guiding, snorting my way into deeper isolation. In another part of the same country, a girl was fighting for her life. I didn't know her yet. At this point in the story, she's a ghost moving on a parallel track. This girl, the one who would eventually become my wife, had already survived a childhood that makes my own look almost gentle. Her mother had abandoned her emotionally long before she was old enough to name it, abused her like worse than a street dog, literally sold her into service. By around 10 years old, she was diagnosed with leukemia and seemed useless by her superiors. Always abandoned 7 to 8 years. That's how long she fought it. Chemotherapy, radiation, infections, side effects. Her hair fell out. Her weight dropped to something like 35 or 40 pounds. Her fingernails loosened. Her teeth were damaged from so many rounds of chemo. And through all of that, her mother didn't come. Her sisters didn't come. Nobody came, ever. The only people who consistently saw her were her doctor in the public hospital, a priest who took her under his wing, a few other patients who became like soul family. Imagine being a child fighting for your life, and the people who should show up simply don't. The message that writes on your soul is, you are on your own. This is wartime fallout on the family. The Sandinista revolution was ugly. Eventually, against all odds, and after heartbreak and miserable years, she went into remission. The cancer stepped back. Her body began to rebuild. But the universe wasn't done testing her yet. As a young woman, she entered a relationship and had her first daughter. You'd think that would be a new chance at healing, right? Not exactly. Her mother, along with a boyfriend who was ex-Sandinista military, a man with his own twisted darkness, began using money and corrupt local connections to try to rip her daughter away from her. They wanted custody, control, ownership. Her mother's boyfriend wanted to raise the little girl himself, and not out of love. My wife has described him as a monster, and the reasons he wanted that child were of the worst kind. So now picture her, remission from leukemia, trying to raise her first daughter, whom she spent the entire first year watching her struggle in an incubator. Debts owed to private doctors, attorneys, and few ways to pay. Fighting a custody war against her own mother and this ex-military predator. Navigating court systems, judges, backroom dealings, all while barely holding her own sanity together. Meanwhile, somewhere along the coastal zone of Leon and Managua, a certain clueless gringo with a Jack Russell Terrier was surfing empty waves, doing lines in dirty hotel rooms, and telling himself he'd get clean soon. We were both in survival mode. We just didn't know we were on a collision course. Scene 5. The Ghost Follower. At some point in those early months of GreenSurf, a quiet decision was made somewhere above my pay grade. We need someone to keep an eye on the gringo. Whether it was Frank or one of his contacts or another node in the network. In this episode, it doesn't matter. What matters is someone was assigned to follow me. That person was her, my future wife. Her job was simple: watch, report, not with binoculars and spy gear, just with presence, with eyes, with instinct. Yeah, today the crazy gringo did the same thing. Surfed all day, explored the coastline for hours with his little dog. From her perspective, I must have looked ridiculous. Sunburned Floridian with two Al Merrick boards, a Jack Russell named Roxy half the size of the waves, wandering up and down beaches like I'd lost something. I didn't know she existed yet. We may have crossed paths in passing. She saw me. I didn't see her. But while she watched me for whoever had hired her, she was also carrying her own wars, protecting her first daughter from the clutches of her mother and that ex-Sandinista boyfriend, dealing with her own PTSD from leukemia and abandonment and betrayal from almost everyone in her family life, just trying to keep her head above water. It's wild to think about now. I was out there on the coastline, thinking I was exploring empty beaches. She was out there too, exploring empty faith in people, and fate was slowly lining us up. Scene 6. The Pregnancy and the Lie. Around March of 2010, she came to Playa Hermosa to find me. She had news. She was pregnant with our twins. She walked up to the Minister of Tourism's beach house, the same house I was calling home base for GreenSurf, and knocked at the door. Knock, knock, knock. She asked for me. I wasn't there. I was either in Leon or Managua, buying supplies or chasing down something for the camp. The details blur now. The point is, I wasn't home. So she spoke to the person who was there, Jonathan. From her account, she told him it was important she speak with me. Jonathan looked at her, this woman with a complicated life, a past, a child, a pregnancy, and decided who she was in about 3 seconds. To him, she wasn't a survivor. She wasn't a former military hero. She wasn't someone who'd survived cancer and family betrayal. She was just some girl trying to get with the boss. So he lied. He told her I'd left Nicaragua, that I'd gone back to Florida, that I was reunited with my ex-wife and my son, that I wasn't coming back. Then, to push the knife in a little deeper, he allegedly offered her money to go away, to not return, to disappear from my story. So she did what survivors do. She left. She resigned from the subcontracted position of watching over me. She walked away from Playa Hermosa, from the coast, from this whole bizarre assignment. And then she left for Mexico, or Guatemala, or somewhere around there, heartbroken, but not because she felt I had abandoned her. To earn money, work, pregnant with twins. That was all she knew since she was a little girl. That was the fastest way to make money. It was her life, what she knew best. She was used to people abandoning her. What hurt was bigger and older than me. Still, she took the lie and turned it into a small source of comfort. At least he's back with his son. At least something good came out of this. She had no idea that I was still very much in El Transito and Playa Hermosa. No idea that I was still spiraling in addiction. No idea that I had never heard her name, never heard about her visit, never been told she was carrying my children. I had no idea that my daughter existed, or that my daughter had a twin brother who would die at birth, while my wife fought her way through pregnancy, birth trauma, and postpartum depression, alone, broke, and brutalized by the Nicaraguan healthcare system. I was at the beach, getting high, surfing, partying, ignorant. That lie, that tiny surgical lie Jonathan told outside of that beach house, cost me the chance to be at my daughter's birth, cost me the chance to meet her twin, cost me years of her life. We both think that the boy would have survived under better circumstances. It's too painful to think about, really. I can't imagine the pain she carries every day, but especially on our daughter's birthday, which is also the day her brother, our son, passed away. It would take several years, setups, betrayals, a surprise fight for my life, 3 against myself, defenseless in boxers, an incarceration, a machete fight with a narcissist Canadian, and a cosmic intervention to bring us back together. But that's another episode. Scene 7. business booms, soul cracks. Meanwhile, life at GreenSurf, Nicaragua looked great. We were booking more trips. Reviews were coming in. Epic, life-changing, best surf of my life. We split operations. One house in Playa Hermosa. Another rented place in El Transito. Jonathan became the go-to guide in the water. Where do we paddle out? Which rocks do we watch out for? Is it better on the incoming tide? I became the guy making sure the whole circus didn't fall apart. Paying Brenda, our cook. Paying Sergio, the caretaker. Covering gas. Paying bills when I could. Emailing guests. Fixing broken boards. Negotiating with locals. Watching trip photos go up on Facebook. From the outside, it looked like the dream I'd shot for back in Florida, when I'd lost everything and pitched Frank this wild surf camp in Nicaragua idea. On the inside, the cracks were widening. The fallout from the Hilux incident never fully healed. We were always behind, owing someone something, explaining something, smoothing feathers. Whenever a big group left happy, we'd breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, we're still alive. Then, when there were no guests, the weekends became minefields. Jonathan always led the way to the party. He loved being in the mix. Bars in Leon, late nights, girls, music. I didn't. I liked the beginning of the night, the first drink, the buzz, the initial energy. But once cocaine entered the mix, I couldn't hide from myself. I couldn't stand people looking at me. I couldn't look anyone in the eyes. I was that quiet, abused kid again, now with a drug hammering every unresolved feeling. So I started disappearing. Jonathan would be out with clients in Leon, being the charismatic guide. I'd quietly buy Coke and check into some cheap hotel room alone. Just me, a bag, a screen, and whatever was left of my soul. That's when the addiction became something darker. I wasn't doing Coke to be social anymore. I was doing it to disappear from myself, to hide from my own eyes. 1 hour high, 1 hour hell, repeat. Then the come down. That's where the real demons live. Your heart pounding, jaw clenched, mind replaying every mistake you've ever made and every one you haven't made yet. You try not to think about another bump. You try to hold the line. You promise yourself, never again. And then the next weekend comes. Scene 8, the seeds of betrayal, enter Aliface. Around 2011, another character stepped into the story. Let's call her Aliface. Her real name is just Blah, but for this story, Aliface works just fine. She deserves nothing less. She came to GreenSurf as a guest from New Jersey, surfer, smart, talkative, curious. She liked the waves, the vibe, the scrappy, almost illegal edge of what we were doing. At that point, we were still the underdogs. 1 foot in paradise, 1 foot in chaos. Between her first and second trip, Aliface sat down with me in El Transito and pitched an idea. Look, I can improve your website. Your idea is incredible. If I tweak your site, help you with SEO, tighten your messaging, we can get you more bookings. Maybe we can even partner. It sounded great. I was exhausted from doing everything myself. Between addiction, money stress, and logistics, the website was the one thing I kept duct taping instead of building properly. We traded emails, talked about pricing, future bookings, possibly revenue sharing. On the surface, it was just another business conversation in a beach house. But then my buddy Matt, one of the same guys from Jacksonville who had helped save Jose from the river, noticed something. He pulled me aside at one point and said, "Hey man, I saw something weird. Jonathan and Aliface," and I saw it later sitting next to each other and their pinky fingers were like intertwined. I think they've got a thing. It sounded small, stupid even. 2 people touching pinkies. But something about it felt off. Because I was noticing changes in Jonathan. I observed how he watched for leverage, for allies, for angles. And I didn't know it yet, but That tiny, almost childish gesture, two pinkies hooking under the table, was the beginning of something. Two snakes starting to coil around each other. Two people who would eventually find common ground in their grievances against me, in my weaknesses, in my addictions, in my distracted leadership, and in the future, when things really blew up and lines were drawn, those pinky shakes would matter. Scene 9. Jonathan the guide, me the ghost. By now, the dynamic was solid. Jonathan was the surf guide, the showman, the guy in the photos. I was the owner-operator, the one who dealt with emails, apologized for the Hilux, paid the rent or got behind in it, smoothed things over with Frank, kept the food coming and the lights on. Sometimes, leaving Jonathan alone with clients felt natural. He's got it, I'd tell myself. He can handle the tour for a night. I'll catch up tomorrow. But addiction and leadership don't mix. While I was out at bars with guests, drinking and flirting, and sometimes going further than that, I'd go get high alone. This wasn't party cocaine. This was survival cocaine. Hide in a room cocaine. The come down, again, was always the same. For every hour of euphoria, there was an equal and opposite crash. Morbid thoughts, panic attacks, spirals. You're a failure. You're a terrible father. You're a fraud. You're going to die here and no one will care. I couldn't look in the mirror without flinching. You tell yourself, just get through this one. Sleep it off. Next week will be different. And then the clock resets. Scene 10. My wife's parallel war. While I was burying myself in hotel rooms and half-truths, my future wife was fighting wars on multiple fronts. She was dealing with the fallout of her own mother's abuse and betrayal. A woman who had never visited her during 8 years of leukemia treatment, now suddenly obsessed with taking her first daughter away. Court hearings, lawyers, judges slipping envelopes under desks. A boyfriend, ex-Sandinista military, whose intentions were anything but paternal. My wife did everything she could to keep her daughter safe. She understood what it was to feel unprotected as a child. She refused to let that happen again to her own little girl. Every time I think about that period, me at the beach, her in courtrooms and hospital, and the heroic things she did, I see two parallel movies playing side by side. On one screen, surfboards, empty lineups, bears at sunset, blurry nights in Leon. On the other screen, hospital corridors, courtrooms, newspaper-wrapped bribes, a woman standing alone in front of a judge saying, "She's my daughter. You can't take her from me." These are all lies. Crying. Suffering. We were both exhausted. We were both being lied to. We were both swimming upstream in different rivers. But I was the irresponsible one. Scene 11. The arrival of Aliface. First cracks in the foundation. Back in El Transito, Aliface became a more regular presence. She came as a guest, surfed, laughed, drank rum, took photos, video. Then, between that first and second trip, she sat with me and pitched her proposal. I can help you improve your website, David. GreenSurf has serious potential. Let me tighten things up, get you more bookings. We can split some revenue, maybe become associates. It sounded like exactly what I needed. Someone competent, tech savvy, someone who could take GreenSurfNicaragua.com from scrappy DIY to international professional surf brand. We emailed back and forth. I shared admin access, ideas, language, and somewhere in the background, outside the frame of my awareness, Jonathan and Aliface were growing closer. That pinky touch wasn't just flirting, it was an alliance. Two people who saw the same weaknesses in me. My addiction, my guilt, my scattered leadership, my desperation to make GreenSurf work at any cost. Together, they started to see something I didn't. What if we could run this better than he is? "Where's Dave?" they would joke. At the time, I just felt vague unease. like walking into a room and sensing that the conversation had switched tracks the moment you opened the door. Scene 12. Firing Jonathan and the first shot of the war. There's a special kind of dread that comes when you finally admit to yourself, this person can't stay in my life anymore. Jonathan wasn't just a surf guide at that point. He was the guy who knew most everything, which contacts I had in Leon and Managua, which drivers I trusted, which guests were coming next month, which locals I'd pissed off, and exactly how weak I was around cocaine. He had been there for the growth of GreenSurf. He'd been there for the parties. He'd been there for the lies. And now I had to be the one to say, you're done. It wasn't some dramatic movie scene. No slow clap, no epic score. It was me, exhausted and frayed, telling him in my own way that I couldn't trust him anymore. Not with my guests, not with my business, not with my sanity. For a minute, it felt like maybe, just maybe, things would calm down. I was wrong, because not long after I fired Jonathan, a group of 8 tourists, my guests, were allegedly robbed at gunpoint by masked Nicaraguans. Inside an oceanfront room in a country I'd come to love, people I'd invited into my dream were suddenly on their knees in someone else's nightmare. And after that, my website went blank. The real storm began. TripAdvisor, online reviews, whispers, rumors. One bad story turned into a wave I couldn't duck dive under. The beginning of a turf war I never wanted and couldn't avoid. GreenSurf Nicaragua versus the ghosts I'd helped create. I thought firing Jonathan would end the chaos. Instead, it lit the fuse. Next time, on The Domino Effect, Episode 6, The Robbery. 8 tourists, masks, guns, and a mystery that still lingers.